What? What stuff?
It's just your clothes hanging up. It just looks so trashy.
I told him that was my flannel vault. Hey everyone, it's Martin.
And I'm Shelly.
And there is a pirate.
Ah.
I knew who that is.
Who's that?
That's Michael Pirate.
Michael.
Yep. All right. So we're here. It's Tuesday night. It's live stream night at the cabin, from the cabin. And we're going to be going over a subject that kind of became sort of an intense one for us this past week. We went to the grocery store to do our monthly grocery shopping, and we got a cart and a half full of groceries, and it cost $750. Can you believe that?
Yeah, but you got to remember, we hadn't got groceries for maybe a whole month and a half. Plus, there was stuff on there that, like my boots.
Oh, she got boots.
A couple other things.
How much does boots cost?
Well,
I don't know. There might have been $200 worth of just bird seed in there from the looks of it.
My birds needed to be fed.
Yeah, well, I don't think that added up that much.
I don't think it was $200 worth of bird seed.
Yeah, well, it was, nevertheless, it was $750 by the time we got out of the grocery store.
Yeah.
So anyway, and we've been talking about this for a long time, so it's not like it's something that's brand new with us about the whole self-sufficiency, cost cutting, and figuring out ways to kind of beat the system when it comes to the high cost of groceries and the high cost of everything else. Hey, Ken, how you doing? Glad to have you back again tonight.
Hi, Ken.
And before we get started in on it, though, a couple things I want to bring up. First of all, if you have not done so, please consider hitting the like and the subscribe button and the notification bell on our channel. And that's the Campfire Trail channel. And we'd appreciate that. And then also, for those of you that are out there, I'll try to mention this a couple of different times. Hey, Lily.
Hey, Lily.
Dave here. Oh, Dave here. Lily here soon. Okay. What's the matter with you, Dave? You're starting to inch your way towards a computer or something? And the farming beardsman. Hey, I don't even know who that is.
Hi.
Glad to have you here tonight.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you haven't done so yet, we'd appreciate it if you would consider hitting the subscribe button to our video channel and the notification bell. And the other thing is that I keep forgetting to do this. I'm going to try to remember it a couple of times during tonight. But we have an email newsletter that we do, and to get signed up for that, all you have to do is enter your email and your first name. Don't really want to know anything else about you unless you're, mention something in the comments or respond to it. But yeah, check that out. We cover all the same kind of subjects that we cover on our video, only in written form. And if you don't like being part of it, I try not to spam it up with a bunch of stuff. So, and make sure that it doesn't happen that way. And, but you can always unsubscribe. It's very, very, very easy to unsubscribe. All you do is click one button and you can be out of it if you want to be out of it. So, but consider going and checking that out. And one thing that I'm doing on there is I'm giving, email updates for when we're doing these live videos. And then we'll also consolidate our, oh, that's who you are.
Oh, Casey.
Well,
hey,
welcome, Casey. Which brings up another subject. But anyway, if we've started putting the notifications of the live feeds on there so that you get just a little quick reminder that we're going to be doing those the day that we're going to be doing them. And then also, I usually stack up on that email once a week. We'll do once a week email. I'll stack up the most recent videos that we've produced on our YouTube channel too. So those are on there if you subscribe to that. And there's a link in the description that should be a functional link below the video here where you can actually click on that link and it will take you to a sign up form where you can sign up for that. Okay, who else? I forgot that my name was different on YouTube. Okay. All right, well, we'll forgive you this time. But since Casey is there, bring up one more thing for next week. I think we're still going to be on for this next week. We tried to do it this week, but just couldn't get all the logistics together. Casey is a guy that we've known for, I don't know, probably getting close to 10 years, I would think.
Probably around 10, maybe even
Yeah, I don't
less.
remember. Maybe if you remember,
More.
Casey, put it
Maybe
in there.
more.
But yeah, him and his wife and kids have a farm up in the central part of Missouri. And besides all the normal farming thing, he also has a firewood processing
Is he still doing
business up there. Well, I'm assuming anything that needs to be changed, I think it's at least 10, maybe more. Yeah, I think so too. So anything that I say that's not correct, Casey, go ahead and correct it there in the comments if you want to. But firewood processing, the normal farming routine. He also has, I know that for a while they were doing kayak adventures, and he had got into some of the resort things similar to what we had at one point. I don't know how involved you are in that anymore, but but he also operates one of the what do you call it? Facebook groups for homesteading on Facebook in Missouri, and then has another thing called the Mountain Man. What is that called? The Mountain Man thing, Casey. Write it in there so I get it right. But it's all about teaching the whole frugal living, homesteading, farming kind of lifestyle to people that are thinking about getting into that. And so anyway, he's going to be live with us next week, and we're going to do the split screen thing on there so you can see who he is. And he's going to be discussing the Fraternal Order of the Mountain Man Ministries. That's what that's called. And we're going to give him, I'm not going to try to get too much information out of him tonight on it, just because it's going to be kind of awkward to go through all of that through the chat box here. But next week, when we have both of us on there, we'll talk a little bit about that and what that's all about and the mission for that. And along with, he's going to be discussing, I believe, we're going to be discussing, one of the things that I see a lot of, one of the things that he sees a lot of too, and that is all of the people out there that are just trying to figure out how to get started, where to go to get started, what to plan for, both good, bad, and ugly, and based on spreading knowledge and skills for farming and homesteading. Yeah.
Okay.
So anyway, he's going to be here with us next week, and we're going to kind of give him the floor, and so he can talk about all of that, answer questions. I'll have a list of questions, kind of go over with him as well. So we don't get bogged down too much. Also, the group is called Homesteading in Missouri. Yeah. And, I'll try to remember to go ahead and take a link for that and put it down in the description here as well, so that you can kind of tap into his homesteading group on Facebook. I'm in that group. Okay. So that's the Treasure Times. That's Mike.
Mike is Treasure Times.
Yep. And so,
and they have you talk to them about their channel.
Well, they have an off-grid. They've got a couple of off-grid things going on. Excited to join next week. Okay. Well, we're excited to have you too. And the Treasure Times, if you see them pop up in there, that's our daughter and her husband. And they have a boat down in Florida that we've been on it 100 miles offshore with it. So it's a sizable boat, and it's kind of the ultimate in off-grid adventures when you think about it, because when you're 100 miles from the shore, you can't connect up to anything. So hi, Mike, thanks for being a member of the group. Yep. Okay. So anyway, so we're going to get started. This is not a new thing to us. When we had that big grocery bill, we've had pretty good sized grocery bills before, because we don't tend to go to town all that often. Okay. So when we do go there, we kind of load up for kind of the whole month of basic stuff. Yeah. And then we'll stop in to get little things here and there in between that time that don't last for a whole month. But our story, I guess, as far as the self-sufficient thing, it started with self-sufficiency, but it also had kind of its roots in, cost consciousness as well. Mm-hmm. Because, when we first got married and started having kids, money was really, really tight. I don't know if any of you can relate to that or not, but with us it was. We
ate lots of hot dogs and macaroni and cheese.
Yeah, I like to tell people that, we lived on Helper sometimes.
Yep.
And when they say, well, what's Helper? It's like, that's hamburger helper, only without the hamburger. And so we actually, I remember fixing that one time, because I mean that was it. We had I think it was a cheeseburger macaroni, kind of a hamburger helper thing, and literally we didn't have anything else to go with it, so I just made the macaroni and cheese basically out of it, and it was pathetic, but hey, we survived on it. 1,000 for a grocery store trip for 10 days. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, we went on a trip with them. It's been pretty close to 2 years ago now, and we were out to sea for 10 days, and that was $1,000 grocery bill just to stock the boat up, because you don't come back and get the things you forgot. You got to get everything once, and we supplemented that with fish and blue crab and lobster and stuff like that.
Oh, it
So
was
it was
pathetic. Good. Oh, and I had bananas on the boat, Mike.
Oh yeah, buy bananas. Yeah. Sometime next time, Mike, you're on here, we're going to have you talk about the banana boat thing. Yeah, Casey says hard times are what makes strong people.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, yeah. It's like what don't kill you makes you stronger. You know, it sometimes feels like it's killing us, but anyway, so we come by that kind of thing sort of honestly. I mean, because we grew up really having to find, or when we were first married and having kids, we really had to find ways of stretching the dollar a lot when it comes to groceries. And, you know, it's really gotten that way now. And, I kind of sympathize with the people with big families that, that have either fixed income or not a real, lot of money to work with. I mean, it can be tough trying to make ends meet. And, when we came down here on this place, we're in Southwest Missouri, and we wanted to establish a sense of self-sufficiency for ourselves. Yeah. And the garden was a priority with that, because we had gardens in the past that were really productive gardens.
I made so much food out of that garden.
Yeah.
I think what really helped our garden was we had a bunch of them chips that we put in the garden.
You're talking about up here on the hill.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then we put the dirt on top, and boy, when the root system hit into where all that decayed
wood
chips
chip, mulch
were,
stuff,
they just went and it went big.
We had okra plants that were probably close to 10 feet tall, and
I kept
tomatoes that were
over.
close to 10 feet tall, and it was a very productive garden.
And we got them. We started the garden a little bit late, somewhat kind of late, but the tomatoes didn't get a chance to even get big until later.
We started the garden in February. Okay. Now we didn't start planting the garden until May.
We didn't have all the planters.
No. That's when I say that we started the garden in February. It's like we started clearing the trees off the hillside.
Oh, well, that's February. Yeah.
And so it was quite a process. I mean, I think that we were at creating the garden space for almost 2 months.
Yeah, and then the deer fence we had to put up. So I mean, we have deer.
Yeah. So as far as the whole idea of the raising food and preserving food, I mean, that was on our radar before we ever really came down here. And it was last year about this time we were thinking about building a summer kitchen to use for processing the garden produce and things like that. And we were looking at it, and where I was planning to build it, it just didn't make a lot of sense to just build one there when we had plans on the drawing board for building a house, which the house is like right back there.
Right there, yeah.
And so we decided to just go ahead and start building the house with a summer kitchen kind of addition on the outside of it as part of the plan. So that's underway now. But the whole garden thing was, we knew that we wanted to start, stocking up with just fresh garden produce, because we enjoyed it so much when we grew a garden years and years ago.
I gotta say this about garden. When I first tasted some of the freshness of it compared to the grocery store shopping and getting food there, I was amazed at it. I was like, wow.
We kind of forgot how good.
Flavors are so much better.
Yeah, and
they taste good.
You know what we mean when we say when we say that, because if you've ever like been at a restaurant that serves tomatoes on their salads or whatever, and you eat those tomatoes and you're like, oh my gosh, these are terrible.
Yeah.
And then you get a good homegrown tomato that's good and ripe and red and juicy and all of that. And it's like, it's that kind of a difference with everything.
And I tried a lot of different things in that garden. My carrots didn't do very good, but it might have been the variety too. I don't know.
And I mean, we're kind of having to relearn because it's been over 30 years since we had a garden. So we're kind of relearning some of the things that we'd kind of forgotten about.
I was excited when my zucchini came out. I went, oh, there's a zucchini.
Yeah. But what kind of happened was we had, it's been, I guess, well, it was at the beginning of the pandemic thing. So early 2020, we were still running several businesses in the lodging thing. And when that pandemic happened, which has been like, I guess it's coming up to 5 years ago now. I remember how my great grandma would stockpile food in the freezer, and she always kept the cellar full of canned food. They would mention every now and then, and it was just in case of an emergency.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, when we were running our businesses there 4 or 5 years ago, when the pandemic started, all of a sudden the mandatory business shutdowns hit us pretty hard. Now, ultimately, we were able to open back. Actually, I never did shut them down like I was supposed to, but they did give us permission for to stay open. But I mean, we were going to stay open anyway, and we did, and we survived it. But we had a rough go there for a little while. I mean, just to give you an idea, in a matter of 2 weeks, we had over $80,000 worth of reservations and deposits cancel, and had to refund all of that out. And that was in the middle of February, March. And so, I mean, we didn't have that kind of money. It was, I mean, all of that had been going to operational expenses for, getting through the wintertime. And so, I mean, it was a struggle. And so at that point, we learned that, hey, the government could shut people down if they wanted to. And we had firsthand experience of that. So we decided that it was time to really tighten things up and maybe cut some of the fat, some of the loose ends out of our lives, and make a journey back to self-sufficiency again. Just in case, because we have no idea, and still don't really know any idea what the future is going to bring.
Mm-hmm.
But so when we came down here, gardening was and food. The whole food thing was really on our radar from the very beginning. Now, before I get into the meat and vegetables of this whole thing, what did we decide to do as far as livestock?
We decided not to do it.
Not to do livestock. And that was a choice that we made on purpose. Okay, because we know, I mean, we've never done big things with livestock. I mean, really the only thing we've ever had hands-on experience with was rabbits. And even the simple lowly rabbit kept us busy. And just because you've got to be there and take care of them, you can't just like get them and then ignore them. So we had a lot of that kind of thing that we had to take care of. And coming down here, we didn't feel like we were going to have the freedom to be able to manage livestock from every single day.
Well, besides that, we have deer running around here all the time. Yeah. And so I can go not too far away, and I'm down at the lake so I can catch fish. So it's like, yeah. And I have friends who have chickens. So
yeah, we don't mind supporting the local farm community around here that does the chickens and the eggs thing and all of that kind of stuff. And then, hunting is really part of our meat in the freezer kind of a plan. And
it's your turn next year.
I don't know. I kind of like it when she goes hunting.
Well, tell them what we ate tonight.
Yeah, we had Italian roast venison sandwiches. I guess you can't call them roast beef. They're roast venison.
They tasted
so they were really good. Yeah. So anyway, that's just kind of lay the groundwork for this. So for those of you on tonight and those of you that watch the video afterwards, we it's interesting. We usually get a lot more video watching after the fact than during the live, which I thought it'd be the other way around. But if you're watching the video and gardening is something that you're either unfamiliar with or afraid of or any of that, I want to just kind of encourage you in that it's not that hard. And I mean, nothing is going to desperately drastically happen if you don't do it right the first time. I mean, it's not that complicated.
Put the seed in the ground, make
Cover
sure
it up,
it
has
has
water.
make sure it's got enough nutrients, and make sure, especially water. I mean, wow, that thing, if you don't water them, they go.
Yeah. And we use, the first year we did not have access to any kind of, natural organic type of fertilizer. So we got some liquid, like almost like fish emulsion fertilizers and some things like that. We tried different things. Livestock is a whole full-time job in itself. Yep. And more on the farming side of the spectrum. Yeah. And that's one of the things that I also talked to Casey about at some point was, do you want to talk about livestock management, care and management? And that's something that I know he's passionate about. So we're going to probably end up working that subject in at some point too. But with gardening, okay, so if you look at it from a cost savings kind of point of view, I guess, you can really start, even if you don't have a lot of land to start with. I mean, there's wonderful information on like container gardening, and we've done a little bit of that. We've done tomatoes in containers before, and some other odds and ends things, and it's not, even that is not that difficult, and it gives you a chance to kind of get your hands dirty and get into the soil and plant some things and watch it grow and see how it turns out. And you may only grow, the first year, you may only grow enough stuff to kind of give yourself fresh veggies along the way.
And that's okay.
As they grow, and there's nothing wrong with that.
I was planting some spinach out there, and then I knew when I was going to run out, I would plant some more for the next cycle because it only lasts so long. And I've been cutting mine off, but then some of them were growing back up again, but it was good. I didn't have to go to the store to get my spinach or any of my lettuce.
And you get the hang of that. I mean, packets of seeds, honestly, we bought some at Dollar General. Microgreens would be a great limited space solution too. Yeah. Our daughter was doing some microgreens this last summer, and we did some up on our greenhouse. And microgreens are surprisingly easy to grow, and
they're very nutritious.
Yeah. And but when we started this out, I mean, you can start with what you got, and honestly, we've got some really high quality seeds this year that we're going to be putting into the ground. But last year, or I guess the year prior to this last year, I just was up at Dollar General one day picking up a couple of things and saw a big old seed clearance deal. So it was after the planting season was already over.
That was the year before.
Well, whatever it was.
Because this year I made sure we got some good organic, non-GMO
okay,
seeds.
so 2023, no, we're in 25 right now. Okay, so 2023, we just had Dollar General cheap, 10 cent per packet seeds. I got them on clearance. Okay, and they grew, and they still grew. And then in 2024, which is just this past year, is when you got the good seeds. Yeah. Okay. And I mean, they grew, I would say, just almost as good as the other. Now, the cheap seeds, we didn't have as much time to prepare everything. So they didn't do as well.
We weren't really geared for a garden either.
No, we just kind of planted them in the woods and everything ate them. So, including us a little bit. But
Mike doesn't like greens.
Mike don't like greens.
You poor thing. You don't know what you're missing.
Yeah.
Adrian will eat all the greens for you.
So, but this year we have a seed company, an organic seed company that has sent us some seeds to try out. So we're anxious to do that this year. But honestly, we just got the seeds last year at I guess it was like Menards, which is like Home Depot or Lowe's or something like that. They were selling seeds in their garden center, and they worked really good. I mean, we were overwhelmed with most of the stuff.
I planted muskmelon, and they went ballistic.
The muskmelons we saved the seeds from a farmer's market muskmelon that we got that was really, or cantaloupe that we got that was really good. And we just saved, it was so sweet and juicy that we just decided to save the seeds out of it and just planted them, not knowing what they would do. And they did. I bet we had 40 cantaloupes up there that we were able, and we actually freeze dried some of it. So that turned out pretty good too. So as far as the gardening is concerned, if you're not accustomed to it or not familiar with it or nervous about it or anything like that, it's not that hard. Just give it a try. And from the first year, whether it's a disaster or not, you can learn for the next year. You'll learn so much the first year.
Usually every packet of seeds or whatever will have instructions.
And they'll have the planting zones and things like that, so you know about when to plant them or about what time of the year to plant them.
I want to know, has anybody out there ever not had a garden? Just let us know, and that would be interesting.
Or if you haven't and you're nervous about trying it.
Yeah.
Because honestly, I mean, I don't even know. I mean, we planted as much as we could handle this year or this past summer, and we had so much produce that, I mean, every day we were going up with these big pans that were like big pans, and sometimes we'd come back with 5 or 6 of them clear full of stuff, and it was there for a while. We were picking busy almost every day. Microgreens are basically best be described as letting the seed sprout and then only growing it for a week or so. Yeah. And very tender, very tasty, and all of that. Yeah. So, we wanted to do a little bit more with microgreens last year, but it was just we had too many things going on.
Too many. Yeah. Well, we were trying hydroponics too, and we
set up
that
a hydroponic system.
It's everything is a learning curve. Even the microgreens that we tried was a learning curve, but I found out that it wasn't that hard to do. And anybody could probably do it.
Hey, Nancy.
Hey, Nancy.
Good to see you here. I think that's the first time you showed up, or at least acknowledged that you were here. So welcome to the show.
Yeah.
So I mean, one of the best ways now, of course, if you're grocery shopping is processed stuff, and you're not taking like the fresh produce out of the produce aisles in the grocery store, you're going to be talking like apples and oranges. I mean, that's going to be so much different. But if like when she goes grocery shopping, half the cart will be some kind of produce from the produce section. And and for us, I mean, that's weirdly enough, I mean, that's some pretty expensive parts of the shopping is the fresh produce.
Yeah. And I like organic because I don't like stuff that's sprayed.
She likes the stuff with dirt
produce, in it. All of our things that we did in our garden have been organic, and I used organic.
They'll have dirt in it.
Slap you.
That's my definition of organic. It's got dirt in it. So, but if you're the kind that goes and does a lot of produce shopping at the grocery store, I mean, that's a significant cost there. And when you compare that over to like garden grown produce, yes, it is more work, but it's actually kind of enjoyable work. I mean, we go up in the morning when it's kind of cool and water things, or maybe water in the evening and try to do the picking before the sun gets up and gets real hot. And it's not that hard.
You know, I do have to say too, I wanted to have blueberries by this time planted, but I don't have too many. I don't have them up yet and going, and too many things going right now. Yeah. So, but I know a great blueberry farm. And so, you know, I will go to places where I know, like a strawberry farm or a blueberry farm or.
Yeah, she will go. Yeah. And a lot of that she'll go away from the stores other than this time of year. I mean, you can't really get fresh stuff even there. So,
well, you can at the stores.
But you can't go to like the farmers markets or the blueberry farms or the strawberry farms, or I guess there's blackberries that the other ones microplastic taste bad. Yeah. Hey, you better be good. She's sliding her thing away over here. So. But when, there you go, Mike.
This is
A fizzy drink.
a fizzy drink.
He wants to save you one, Mike.
Okay.
Okay, back to the okay. So as far as gardening is concerned, our go-to during the summertime before we did the garden was going to be farmers markets and the berry farms and things like that. Yeah, and so that's what we did. And then down here, there's a thing that is really good for getting fresh produce or nearly fresh produce, and especially if you're going to be canning or preserving it. And I never even knew that these things existed until a year ago. But there's an Amish community, probably probably about an hour and a half drive from here, I suppose. And
I think there's more all over United States that do this.
Yeah, there is, because I looked it up Google when I was trying to figure out where this was at, and I found out there's actually a lot of them out there. And they do produce auctions. And Casey, maybe you're familiar with this too. I'd never even heard of it until last year. But one good way to get produce, if you're not going to be growing it yourself, is once a week these places will have a produce auction where you go in and buy produce basically by the big box. And I found out that a lot of the farmers market people, that's where a lot of them don't actually even grow their own stuff and come to the farmers market to sell. They'll go and load up an entire truckload of something or many things at these produce auctions, and then bring it in and then raise the price a little bit and then sell it. And it's still a better deal than, a lot of times buying them at the store.
Yeah.
But that's like, bypassing that and going straight to the produce auctions.
I just like the idea of being able to grow it. But
yeah, and when you grow it, I mean, you kind of care for it and do it the way you want, and it turns out sort of the way you want. But I watched a YouTube video a while back on someone that was Amish up in Jamesport having an auction, pallets full of everything you can grow. Yeah. And I think that's maybe the one that we were looking at. And I'd watched a YouTube video on a lady that had always grown and canned tomatoes, and it's just, I mean, tomatoes, when they start producing, it's like, holy cow, you just got to pick them all the time and deal with them on a day after day after day after day basis. And we just got to where we just freeze all of them in the freezer with the skins on and then process them later. In fact, we were just doing salsa just a couple of days ago, using more frozen tomatoes. But where she had been doing that and then trying to, stockpile up a whole bunch of tomatoes to only can them all at once. She finally quit doing that.
Yeah.
And instead she went and got, gosh, I don't know, it was like 140 boxes of tomatoes. I mean, big boxes, not just like little, not like the little store boxes, but I mean like full, like almost like banana box size boxes full of tomatoes. And spent like 3 days nonstop canning tomatoes. But then once the 3 days was over, she was done. She had enough tomatoes for probably 2 years.
She did she did barbecue sauce, ketchup. Yep. She did just anything.
Tomatoes, salsa, did all of it in one big shot. And it took 3 days, but when she got done, she was done with the tomatoes. She didn't have to mess with it ahead of time. She didn't have to mess with it after, just those 3-day blitz of tomatoes. And
that's pretty interesting because,
I mean, we may end up trying something like that at some point.
Yeah.
But really with the house building thing going on down here, it's,
we
may or we may not.
We just don't know how this year gardening is going to be, but we do know that we're going to do some. My thing is, with me, the critical thing is the watering constantly, because there's a couple times where it was so warm that we ended up doing 2 times watering, in the morning and in the evening, because it was so dry.
It was kind of a drought here last summer.
But I don't know, wherever you guys are, you might have better rain, might even have better soil.
Wouldn't go hard to be better soil than what we've got here, but
it's good soil because of what we did.
Yeah, the soil that you walk on is not any good.
No.
But we went to raised beds, and so we filled the beds with about 1.5 feet to almost 2 feet worth of really good organic material.
That's a good way when you have to do a garden and you're getting older. You don't want to bend down all the way. you can just pick it right there, and it does make
it
sense.
is a lot easier.
Yeah.
It was not as easy to build them,
No,
but
it took
it's a lot
time.
easier to work them afterwards.
Yeah.
So anyway, if that's something that you're not real familiar with, it's worth giving a try, because it can represent, when you start listing all of the things that we've either canned or freeze dried or frozen or vacuum sealed or whatever out of our garden.
Yeah.
I mean, we ended up with shelves and shelves and shelves of some things we have, like the pickle things.
The pickles went ballistic.
We've got a dozen different varieties of things that we've made with pickles,
I would
and
pick
enough
all
to,
these.
I bet we got enough to last 4 years. Okay,
I would pick all these pickles, or I mean cucumbers, and I'd bring them up there, and I go, Martin,
what you would do is
cucumbers.
one day you'd go out there and pick them all. It's like, okay, we got to get them out of here and get them canned up. So that'll give us a week, and we go up the next day and there'll be that many more. So
yes.
I don't know how they do it. I don't know how they grow that fast.
They just produce.
But we've got some things that will literally last us years, and we won't really have to do much for pickles.
I don't think we'll have to do much pickles.
Unless we want fresh cucumbers and things.
I love my mom's pickle relish recipe.
Yeah, but you'd have to eat a jar of that every week to run out. So
no, I know. I like it. I like to eat it.
So anyway, the whole thing is try growing produce, because if you can grow it for, even if you buy good seeds that cost a lot, okay, you're still only talking $2 or $3 a packet, and there's nothing up there that we grew that we didn't do with just one packet of seeds. Now sometimes we had a couple of different varieties, like the cucumbers. We did one variety that was better for canning and one variety that was better for just straight up eating. So we had 2 varieties of them. You two are having so much fun. We are. That's what we do for a living. And the tomatoes were the same way. We did some great big tomatoes, and then we did some Roma tomatoes, and we did the little cherry tomatoes.
I can't believe that we planted 3 different varieties of tomatoes. And then when I was planting, somehow the seeds got mixed. And
we had tomatoes growing everywhere.
So I had tomatoes in my cucumber patch, and it was crazy.
Yeah. So Casey has good soil quality. Land has been under constant regenerative agriculture. Yeah. And that's what happens. I mean, when you start doing, when you start a garden, it's just like every year you build it up a little better, and the soil quality. And so, this last year we just had some topsoil and some wood mulch, and and then we put some fertilizer on there. But this year we picked up a huge trailer load of rabbit or chicken litter from friends of ours had a chicken.
Oh, go ahead.
They have a chicken barn business, and
we got that compost
and got some compost. Yeah. So, and we make compost too, but we got a big trailer load of it from
because it was a lot. We had a good trailer to use.
So now we got 2 big hills up there.
But we've got good soil now. I can say we do have good soil.
And I know that when we put that chicken litter in there and work it in,
it'll grow anything.
It'll grow anything. Yeah. In abundance. So we had a pretty decent one on our first year, but this second year is going to be even better. And then probably, each year is going to get better. So anyway, yeah, that can represent a huge difference. If we had to buy all of the tomatoes, just the tomatoes, okay, to do what we did here from a grocery store, it would have been probably $1,000. And we basically grew all of the tomatoes that we could handle.
Yeah, because I would come out and I would have a handful of them little tomatoes, and he would eat them like candy.
Yeah, we just put them in like a candy dish, and I would usually end up eating 30 or
he'd
so.
Go over
30
there,
or
and
40
next thing he'd be
cherry tomatoes every day.
And then our granddaughter would come over and she'd nibble on them. She just all of a sudden you'd see her sneak one in there.
So really, I mean, you're like, just with the tomatoes alone, we probably did all of our tomatoes for a total of $5. And if we had to buy that many of them from a grocery store, and we went through all of them, but if we had to buy that many, I wouldn't doubt that we'd have spent $1,000 just for tomatoes. Some folks may be familiar with the Back to Eden methods. I'm not even familiar with that. I never even heard of it. That's a good basic outline of a living soil management system. We've called it by many names, but the basics are similar. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, hey, we're going to give Casey the chance to talk about that kind of stuff.
I think with that fertilizer that we put in, that fish emulsion, that made it good.
I think it did too.
For it.
Right. And you guys ever watch Off Grid with Doug? Oh yeah. Yeah. They've got, in fact, they're one of my main channels that I kind of go to on there. So yeah, I'm very familiar with them and, do contributions on their channel every now and then too. So, hey, glad to have you here, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, the next thing is we're going to move away from that whole garden thing. Before I get into the food preservation, though, I do want to talk a little bit about the livestock thing and our alternative to that, because we really don't want to manage the livestock. We really don't have the time we feel to dedicate to it that we would need to. Yeah. And so, I mean, hunting is part of our food management plan. Okay. And we just don't go hunt a lot of things. And mainly it's just deer. Okay. And, we'll try each year to put a couple of deer in the freezer. And, I mean, I grew up with eating venison, and so it's not that special to me. I mean, it's good. It's very lean. It's good for you and all of that. But she loves it, and I'll eat it.
He's crazy because that is the best. I love it.
But that's part of our program for, stocking our freezer is hunting and primarily a couple of deer a year.
Actually, Mike and Adrian, they got to do their first deer butchering with us.
Yeah, we butchered 3 deer in one day.
It was busy.
That was a job.
Wow.
Yeah. And hunting is a great alternative to raising livestock. Yeah, you don't have to care for them every day. Mm-hmm. All I do is go out and shoot them, and then you're done.
Yeah. And I got a fishing daughter she's just a fanatic fishing, wants to go fishing all the time. And I just was too busy to really go a lot. But when I go, I usually catch fish.
We need to have her be responsible for that part of the the food thing. So anyway, that's kind of where we're at with that is just, we primarily, put probably 40 pounds or 50 pounds worth of deer in the freezer every year, and then use that for our staple red meat kind of a thing.
I make meatloaf out of it. It's so good.
Yeah. So let's talk about preservation a little bit. One of the things, we did canning a lot when we were living in Iowa 30 some years ago. It's coming up on about 35 years ago now. And what are you laughing at?
Casey.
Maybe feed some corn, not during the season, of course. Yeah. So they come up right now. I mean, we feed them kind of after the season is over through the wintertime. And
I just enjoy watching them.
They're turning into pigs out there. They want to come up every morning and eat food.
I was going to go get some wood out there, and there he was. I'm like, Martin, there's a doe out there. And then next thing, there's a buck.
Yep.
There was more than one buck this morning.
So preservation was sort of the next thing on our list. Once you start growing food, it can be kind of a big commitment for work and effort. But the thing is that it produces for you in a way that you've got to find a way, I guess, depending on the size of your garden, you've got to find a way to preserve it, because if you don't, you'll end up either giving it all away or it'll go bad or something. So you got to have ways to preserve it. And that's kind of the point, because right now, I mean, we can go over to our shelves over here where we have our stuff. And I mean, there's literally everything that we grew in the garden is over there on the shelf right now.
Yeah.
And we can go have our selection of that. And I mean, the only difference is that it's been preserved in one form or another instead of fresh.
Yeah. I'm going to go get one of my sweet potatoes and show them the sweet potato.
So we wanted to be able to really preserve food in just about any kind of a way that it was possible to do it. So obviously the first thing is just simply freezing food. And with the tomatoes, we would just like drop them in the freezer. My mom always used to laugh because when you drop a whole tomato or a whole bunch of whole tomatoes with the skins on them into the freezer and they freeze solid, she said that it sounds like cue balls rolling around down there. And then it really does. It sounds like when they're knocking together, it sounds like cue balls. But it's a good way to freeze them and protect them with the skins on until you get ready to actually do something with them. And to get the skins off, all you have to do is just run a little bit of water. It doesn't even have to be hot water. Just run a little water over them. It will thaw them, just the skin part. The skins will slip right off. So you can start with that. So that's kind of the basic thing. And we will shred.
Here's some of my sweet potatoes.
Yeah, we had.
I get in there.
We get a big one out there. So it's like, I give you an idea of how big these sweet potatoes were.
Yeah.
And we'd never even tried growing sweet potatoes before.
I'm going to be growing them again.
Yeah.
I love them.
So she eats a lot of them. I don't eat that many, but those are just being stored right now in a root cellar style environment. They're in the cabin, but they're in kind of the coolest part of the cabin by the front door, down low and underneath the bench. So they're staying maybe well done. Yeah. We had no idea what we were going to get. I mean, you see them plants are growing all over the place, but the potatoes you can't see. You have no idea what's there. And they were good, and they're good and dark and very flavorful compared to like the store-bought ones. And so freezing was a thing. I mean, one of the things that we eat a lot of is we had zucchini here, and she would shred it up almost like shredded potatoes for like hash browns, and do zucchini breads that way. And those, what are those things called that you make with the eggs? Frittatas. So those were all delicious. And those, we just basically put them in the freezer in 2-cup bags. That way, because that's what the bread, when we make zucchini bread, that's what it requires, is a 2-cup portion. So we'll freeze things that way. She, in the past, has frozen a lot of the berries, the strawberries and blackberries and blueberries.
I do like to do that.
Yeah.
And I'm a healthy eater, and I like putting them in my smoothies and stuff.
Yeah.
So, but I learned something. When I get a bunch of blueberries, I try to package them and get them put up in the freezer. And sometimes if I don't get them all ate up, then I would blend them up and then I would put them in my freeze dryer, and I'm going to be making powder out of them.
Yeah. And
that way I could just take the powder and just put in there. And
so, yeah,
and I'm getting basically the same nutrition. That's a new
thing that we've done for food preservation, is the freeze dryer. But to kind of start with, we had the freezer, and then we had done a lot of water bath canning where you're just using a regular stovetop canner that's not a pressure one to do canning. And we mostly used that when we were younger, and that's what we kind of started with then. And I had no idea how to use a pressure canner a year ago.
Learned.
And we learned, and it was not that difficult. You just have to have your times and temperatures and pressures right. But if you do that, you're good.
There's certain things that you use for the water bath and for the other one.
Yeah. Acidic type of foods like tomatoes and jams and stuff like that will, you can do the water bath canning without any problem, or anything related to pickles and stuff like that. So, but if you go into meats, canning meats and a lot of root vegetables and things like that, you've got to do them in a pressure canner.
Green beans.
But it's really not a complicated process.
No.
Once you do it a couple of times, you think that was easy. Why was I so scared of that?
Yeah, it's not hard.
And really the water bath canning, if you're doing jams and jellies and fruit types of things and pickles and tomato products and stuff like that, if you're doing a lot of that, you can get by with just the water bath canner. And those are, they're not that expensive to buy, even if you went and bought a new one and not picked one up at like a yard sale or something. Even a new one isn't that much. It seems like around $30 or something like that. So it's not an expensive food preservation method to get into. Now the pressure canner is something that, again, was the first time we've done this was last year. And that was about $100 for the pressure canner alone. And we got a double tier one so that if you use pint cans or pint jars, you can actually get 2 layers in there. And you're not really canning them by boiling them. What you're doing is it's kind of creating steam and pressure. So that allows the temperatures to get a lot higher and hotter inside the jars, and then so that you can kill the bacteria off. That's any kind of bacteria that might be in there. And so that's a method that we got into this year because we did grow a lot of vegetables. What do we got here?
That's the organic grape jelly.
Grape jelly, yeah.
That was such good. It has good flavor.
My sister has about a 1/4 acre of Concord grapes, and she'd give us grocery bags full of grapes this year, and so we turned them into jelly.
It took a long time to sort them and do all that.
It's not really a jelly; it's more of a preserve or a jam.
Yeah,
but,
I made the seeds come out.
Yeah, we got the seeds out of them and things like that. So we got are sweet potatoes the only type of potato you have grown? Yes.
This year, but I'm familiar with potatoes. I've
just kind of white or yellow potatoes or something like that. Yeah.
But I haven't had time to do them all.
You have a big investment in jars. Yes, but it's a one-time investment.
Yeah.
So now, I mean, you can continue to buy them and you're buying more of them all the time. But basically, once you buy a jar, the jars and the rings you reuse over and over and over and over again until you give them to somebody as a gift, and then all of a sudden they disappear forever.
And if you go to yard sales, sometimes you'll find people who have a bunch of jars.
Yeah. And jars, we figured out right now, jars, if you buy them for $1 per jar by the case, that's about as good as you'll find. If you ever find them cheaper than that, buy as many as you can get.
Yep.
And then when you need more, just get more. I mean, we started out with probably about 15 or 20 cases of jars at the beginning of the year. And then, I mean, we ran out, and then we started buying them another case at a time as we needed to. But the good thing is that as we use them up, we store them back in the shed. And then when we get ready to need them again, we'll pull them back out and do them again.
Yeah, Casey said estate auctions are a good way to get bulk jars too.
That's a good point. Yeah. Casey, you had mentioned the thing about wanting to make some different kinds of jelly this year. I'm going to give you a little bit of a trick on what we did back when we were young and living up in Iowa. We got so excited about this new thing called canning that, I mean, we canned everything that we grew in our garden, but it was really a very small garden. It was very productive, but it was not a very big garden. And we can't, I think one year, I think we counted 78 jars of pecani sauce that we canted in that one year. And that came out of just our garden.
Well, I tried
counting the ones that we ate.
I tried ketchup. I made ketchup and we did a bunch of juice.
Yeah. So, I mean, there was tomatoes. A lot of other things too, but jelly was something that we wanted to do too. And we didn't really have access to.
We didn't have
the fruit. Yeah. Okay. So Casey, if you're listening, here's what you can do. And you can do this any time of the year. You don't have to wait till the regular canning season is ready. What we did was we would go buy concentrated fruit, like frozen concentrated fruit or juice from the store, like the little can of grape juice that you peel the ring off and you dump it in 3 cans of water.
100% though.
Yeah.
Got to be 100%.
Yeah. And just get regular fruit juice concentrate and mix it up into just juice. Okay. We wouldn't do any different. We just take that juice and then use that and add the pectin to it, like the Sure Gel or whatever it is that you use to make jellies out of, and just can it up just like we would if it was fresh. If it was fresh fruit juice that we were getting off an apple tree or grapes or whatever. And we made, what all did we make? I mean, I remember we made a lot of apple jelly because it was so good.
I can't remember though if we took all the water in it or if we let it.
It seems like we did all of the water, but it might be something that you would have to experiment with.
You better experiment with that before listening to
whatever it was that we did. We started with fruit juice concentrates and ended up with jelly, and it was just as good as store-bought jelly. Maybe even better. I think we did have to add some extra sugar to it because it did have to have that sweet little bit more of a sweet to it than just the juice did by itself. But it really was just the juice, the pectin, and maybe some extra sugar.
Right.
And I know we did apple jelly, lots of apple jelly. We did grape jelly. We did, what was some of the other ones that we did? We did a bunch. We probably did 5 or 6 different types of juices that we turned into.
I can't remember. He's talking about clear back about
35 years ago.
Yeah. I mean, I can't remember all that we did.
I do. I remember doing it.
I remember some of it, but how many juices we did and how many jams and jellies. And
here's something that you can try. That. Try some jalapeno jelly. For those of you that out there want to do interesting, I hadn't thought about that. Yeah, trust me, it works. It works very good. Strawberries. I don't remember if we have ever done strawberries or not.
Strawberry jelly. I don't know if I did.
Jam.
Yeah, jam.
Yeah, a friend of ours does strawberry rhubarb jam.
Yeah.
That's delicious.
Yeah.
But jellies are an easy thing to try to start with.
I think strawberry ones would be easy too.
Yeah. And honestly, with the internet, you can go on there and find 100 recipes. That's what we did with the jalapeno jelly. Yeah. We made a bunch of jalapeno jelly this year, and it is so good.
Yeah.
Incredibly, indescribably good.
We grew the jalapenos.
Yeah, we grew all the jalapenos.
Our jalapenos were just going.
And there's not much to it. It's like jalapenos, vinegar, sugar. Was there anything else? I don't know if there's anything.
Well, the pectin.
Well, the pectin, yeah.
Yeah.
So jellies are easy. I mean, if you want to experiment, you don't even have to grow a garden to experiment canning jellies. Just try it. Just try it. You can do it. And so we've got the water bath canning, the pressure canning. What are some of the other things? We've got a dehydrator that we actually haven't used since we've been here in Missouri. We've been carrying it around for years. We used to use it a lot. We would dry herbs,
bananas
and apples. I mean, we did apples.
Beef jerky.
We did beef jerkies with them. Yeah. So a dehydrator is a good method that doesn't cost a lot. Doesn't cost a whole lot to get into that. I think you can buy a decent dehydrator for around $40 if you want to, or you can spend a lot more too. But dehydrating is easy. It doesn't quite preserve things. It doesn't preserve things like a freeze dryer does by any means.
The nutrition value is,
and you lose a little of the nutritional value doing a dehydrator, but it's a good way to dehydrate fruit and things like that. So there's that. Not expensive to get into, but you can preserve it for a length of time that way. Mm-hmm. And we just recently got a vacuum sealer, which the act of vacuum sealing will preserve food in the sense that it will pull all the oxygen or air out of the bag and can squeeze it down to where it's just whatever the contents are of the bag. But then after that, you really do have to freeze it if it's something that is risk of spoilage. But we've also, we make, what did I make? Oh, the last big batch of ham and beans I did a big enough pot that I wanted to save some of it.
Oh, sure. I got that.
Find those. Oh, you got the thing. Yeah. Okay. And what we did with that was we took all of the leftovers, and making ham and beans is, I mean, if you're looking at it from a cost point of view, ham and beans is, to me, it's delicious. And then besides that, it doesn't cost that much to make because you start with dried beans and ham hocks, and ham hocks are still affordable. I mean, people just don't buy ham hocks much other than to make ham and beans out of. And so they don't cost that much. I think it cost for a batch of ham and beans, I'll bet $3 worth of ham hocks in it. And so I had maybe $2.50 worth of the bean package and then another $3 worth of ham hocks and made a huge pot of ham and beans. And here's what it looks like. What we would do is we'll freeze the leftovers in these little they're silicone molded containers, almost like you would almost think of like a Tupperware container, but they're all real flexible like a silicone mold would be.
Or you can use Tupperware.
Or you can use Tupperware, whatever you do, just
whatever.
Put it in there so that it freezes in a shape, because freeze or vacuum sealing liquids is a little bit of a trick.
Yeah.
So I just froze it in these blocks. They're like 2 cups blocks of ham and beans. Maybe you can see what that's like. Yeah. Just froze them in that little silicone mold.
Put it back.
And then dropped them in a vacuum seal bag and sucked the air out of them and threw them in the freezer. So now all I have to do, actually, I could probably microwave them to warm them back up. Just snip off one of the ends of it or something, or just cut them loose and put them in a pan or a pot, and then cook up. Basically, she doesn't like ham and beans that much. She'll eat maybe a bowl, but that's about it. But I like them, so you know she can have one if she wants it. Otherwise, I'll just pull out enough for a serving and heat it up at once. And literally, I've made. If you were to compare that to like the little Campbell soup cans, okay, I made a big enough pot of ham and beans that would have probably been the equivalent of about 3 soup cans, and I had way more than that.
So
and it tastes better.
So he says he doesn't like to eat the same way I eat. So I'm eating like.
See you, Ken. Thanks for coming in.
Bye, Ken.
Hey, be here next week and let's see what Casey has to say.
So
thanks again.
I grew my own squash, and then I took and steamed my squash, and then got all the, separated all the skin and the seeds out of it. And then I smashed it and put it in bags, and a cup at each bag had a cup in it.
Yeah.
And I would take that and put it in the freezer.
Are they all in the freezer, or do you have one?
I have one here.
She's got one here. What she does with that vacuum sealer. The vacuum sealer thing is.
I didn't use vacuum sealer on that yet.
Well, you did on some of them.
I don't have my sweet potato.
Bring over one of those sandwiches too from that thing. So when we were down, the last time we were down on the Treasure Times thing, are you Treasure Times people all out there yet? Adrian introduced us to French bread pizzas, and they were really good.
Let me finish my thing about the sweet potato.
Okay. All right.
Or not sweet potato, about the squash.
Squash.
So this is before I had a vacuum sealer, but I would take my squash and put it in like this. It's a real thin.
How many cups?
It's 1 cup.
1 cup. Okay.
And I would take that because I know he doesn't eat it, although I would give him some if he would eat it because it makes a big bat. And then I would make my own homemade squash soup with coconut. And it's so good.
And again, she loves squash soup and used to buy it all the time from the store. And she makes something that she likes better.
And it tastes good.
Yeah, it tastes better and costs way, way, way less. And so next thing on the vacuum seal deal was we learned to make the French bread pizzas like Adrian taught us how to do. And then we've been making those a lot. It seems like about once a week. And then so when we got this vacuum sealer, it's like, well, what all kinds of things we could do. And I remember one time when we were working day and night, it seemed like, on something down here, and we just didn't take the time to make breakfast in the morning. So one day I grabbed a box of the sausage biscuits, okay, and they were frozen in a little bag and sealed up in a bag that I had to cut open. And I got to thinking that, well, that's just exactly like our vacuum seal bag. And so, can you get one that's sucked down?
Yeah.
So anyway, this is one that we have not drawn down yet. So what we did was we made a bunch of biscuits. We have not done the video on that yet, so that's coming up. But we made a bunch of biscuits, got some sausage, got some eggs, and some cheese, and made up a whole bunch of breakfast biscuit sandwiches, and did some with ham, did some with sausage, dropped them down into a vacuum seal bag. And if she ever finds one over there, you got one?
No, not yet.
Oh, she's still working on it. I know they're in there. Anyway, sucked the air out of them. The first one I smashed it, so it drew the air out so much that we smashed it. We figured out that we need to freeze them first, so we put them in the bag, stick them in the freezer, and then once they're froze and kind of will hold their shape, we'll vacuum seal them down. We found out she did a bunch of croissants with hers, and it just smashed the croissants down flat. But here's a biscuit.
Croissant. So I did it this way.
Yeah. So
the thing is, you can make the air.
You can stop the vacuum whenever you want to.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
So this one got smashed pretty good, the croissant, but
Yeah,
then
with
we
this
learned to
one-
pull the air out until it starts to squeeze the
Better.
thing, and then that's better.
Okay.
And yeah,
I'm
you
gonna
can put
put
those
these
back.
on.
So anyway, we've been doing that. So we've been able to do soup in the vacuum sealer and just freeze it. Now, of course, vac seal ammo. Yes, he sent me a picture on that. So, but we've done soups. Just freeze them into those blocks and then vacuum seal them and stick them in the freezer. And the sandwiches, that works a lot better than I expected it to. And obviously, I mean, you can vacuum seal dry goods like beans or rice or anything like that. But that's another method of preserving for longer term use, and get it stored kind of out of the way. So we've covered those things. The big thing I think that we had invested in this past year, and you may have seen it on some of the other videos. Why don't you grab one or two of those bags of freeze dried something?
Okay.
So what we did this past year was we've been reading up a little bit on the freeze dryers, and I mean, they're pricey. I mean, you're not going to get by on under $100 with something like that. I mean, you're more in the neighborhood of $2,000 or $3,000 or even $4,000 depending on the size that you're getting. But in all honesty, if you want to preserve long-term food, freeze dryers supposedly will take food preservation to a 25-year window. And so we did that, not so much that we're trying to do the apocalyptic society meltdown, end of the world kind of a thing, and trying to store food up that long. But it works good for short term, and really anything between short term and out to like a 25-year window. And of course, I mean, we've only had it less than a year, so we can't prove the fact and say that 25 years, but I mean, that's kind of the general accepted time frame of freeze dried food. And she brought over some things. We've got blackberry powder, which we just took blackberries and blended them in a blender, and then just pasted it out on a tray, vacuum sealed it, and then it's like it just crumbles up into powder. This one is that peaches?
Peaches.
Okay, so we've got freeze dried peaches. Once you take them out, okay, so each bag, it's a Mylar bag, so it's oxygen barrier to start with, and then there's an oxygen absorber inside to remove any additional oxygen that might still be in there, and it keeps them. And I can tell these are still just as crunchy and dry as they were when we put them in there.
The blackberries.
And this is the powder, and so we just crush it up into powder.
Yep.
Once you open the bag, they're Ziploc bags, so once you open them, you can reseal them. But once the food is exposed to air, that 25-year thing is out the window at that point. And then you got 6 months to a year before you really need to use them up. We just leave the oxygen absorber in the bag, but we'll zip it shut each time when we get it out. We'll take the contents out and put them into jars that have just regular lids on them. We don't try to do anything with them other than just store them in the jar. This is whole blackberries that we have freeze dried, and they're lightweight, but they're just like blackberries. I mean, they're blackberries.
That's her soup she did.
There is strawberries that have been freeze dried, and this obviously we've taken out of the package. This is some soup that my daughter made for us one day, and we took the leftovers there. Shredded zucchini again, and to use this, we'll just put it into a pan of water, and it will reconstitute in a matter of a minute or two. So you'll have it pretty much back to the same consistency that it was before it was freeze dried. This one is peach slices. So we got a whole bunch of peaches and just sliced them up, and that's the peaches. And then this one is, okay, these are tomato halves or slices. What we would do is when we had so many tomatoes going that we would slice them up, cut the small ones in half and just lay them cut side up. Or if they're a little bit bigger, we'd slice them and then sprinkle. Oh yeah, that's what they look like right there. and lay them with the meat side up and sprinkle garlic salt on them or sea salt, or this one has garlic pizza. So we would take like a pizza seasoning and just sprinkle over top of them. There's also, we took like taco seasoning packets and sprinkled over these. And because when the tomatoes go in, obviously the insides of them are wet. I mean, they're juicy. So when you, as soon as it hits, as soon as you sprinkle that seasoning on them, and it just absorbs in. And then when you freeze dry them, all of that flavor is still there. And Adrian, if you're still out there, are you still out there, Adrian? Tell them what you think of these dried, seasoned tomato halves.
She likes
And then there's zucchini. There's zucchini slices here that have what's on this one? Pizza, garlic seasoning on that one.
Yeah.
And we do all of that. Now I'll tell you a little bit about like the freeze dryer. I wouldn't jump into a freeze dryer until you are doing some serious food preservation, just because they're so expensive. But if you do reach the point where that's something that you want to do, you have to understand that we got ours in, I think, June. So the garden was just really starting to come on good when we got the freeze dryer. And we experimented with just about everything that we had in the garden. And there's a couple of things that we didn't like that well, but for the most part, it was all really good. And if you were to price out those bags of freeze-dried vegetables or fruits or berries or meat, we freeze-dried some venison, some seasoned smoked venison that turned out surprisingly good to me, and almost better than if it was fresh, as far as I was concerned. But if you started comparing the price of buying that long-term preserved food that's freeze-dried, I would say that we have probably maybe not quite paid for the cost of the freeze dryer. And had we bought all of that already freeze dried from a store or an outlet, but it would be very, very close. I think that easily by midway through this coming year, we will have probably, again, that's if you were buying that stuff already freeze dried for storage, for long-term storage, if you were buying it, it would really, I think the freeze dryer would pay for itself in the amount of stuff that we sent through it in probably a year and a half. It would be my guess. And I mean, we bought a large one. We got a big one. So, I mean, it was $4,000. Okay. But if you start looking at those little packets of food, it's like $10 almost anywhere that you try to buy it for, and one serving or possibly two servings.
My whole thing is once you buy it once, you don't have to do it again.
Yeah.
And you'll have it for the rest of your life. And so I look at that way. And
really we are, I would say, again, our payback on it is probably going to be a year and a half. So once we reach that year and a half point, if we're pulling the produce out of the garden at a similar rate that like what we've been doing, like what we did this past year, we will easily recover the cost of that freeze dryer. And then from that point on, it's just basically the cost of the electricity it takes to run it. So, which is almost nothing compared to buying the food. So in all, I think what I wanted to do with this video is just simply help you to understand that if grocery prices are just choking you to death, that you do have alternatives on this. And it doesn't have to necessarily even be you go out and grow your own vegetable garden or plant your own fruit trees or, raise chickens or goats or rabbits or whatever. You don't have to necessarily do all of that in order to start making a dent in it right away. And it's kind of like what I'd mentioned with Casey on, if you want to learn how to start doing canning and you've never done it before, buy the stuff for a pressure or for a water bath canner. You can probably get into the everything you need for $50 plus the cost of the jars, which you get to reuse. When after you've used them, you just store them until you're ready to use them again. And go buy some juices and things, or go to your local farmer's market whenever, you know, they've got stuff out there, and buy a bag of something and come back and start working on. Tomatoes is easy. I mean, you don't have to have anything special to do that. There's 100 things you can make with tomatoes as far as canning them is concerned, and just start experimenting with it, because before you know it, you'll be having. I mean, honestly, right now we're looking at these shelves over here, and it's like we've got to get something built before next year's garden season comes in, because we are out of space. We're not going to have room to put it all. So it really does work that way.
Yeah. And I do know too, freezing things is very good. So when I did my blueberries,
freezing is the easiest.
And I got to the new year, and then I had my last year's berries. That's when I put them in the blender and put them in the freeze dryer. And I tried something new this morning, and I really liked it. I had applesauce, and I had some of the blueberry cubes, and I put them in my applesauce, and it made my applesauce kind of blueberry. You know, have you ever heard of blueberry pancakes? Well, I put that sauce on my pancakes, and it was just so good. Yeah. I put a little vanilla in there and some cinnamon, and it was excellent.
Oh, there's Adrian. Okay, so Adrian. How about those?
She liked yummy taco tomatoes.
Oh, taco tomato. That's her favorite one. Yeah.
She likes the taco tomatoes.
Yeah, I knew that. And
I think I have a bag of them here.
And our other daughter, Mandy, she loves them too. And our granddaughter, Marin, she just eats them and eats them and eats them. So, so yeah, we know they're getting something raised in our own garden that has good flavor to it. Still has its nutrition in it.
I like to give Marin and the grandkids different kind of fruits that I had freeze dried, and they will eat it.
Yeah.
And they will like it. It's just like candy to them, and it tastes very good, and it's so good for them. Healthy. I like that. Healthy. That's good.
Yep.
All right.
Well, I don't know who all's out there yet. I notice we're starting to lose them. So
do you guys have any questions out there for anything? I hope we answered all the things that we were.
Yeah. We'll stay on here for about another five minutes or so, and to answer any questions if you think of anything. Again, remember, if you wanted to get hooked up to the newsletter, go down in the description below. There's a link that will take you to a page where you can sign up. All we're asking for is your first name and your email. That's it. And again, you can unsubscribe anytime you want to with the click of a button. So it's just as easy to get out of as it is to get into. There's a gnat flying.
No, it's a fly, and I seen it coming in the house today, and I tried to get it earlier. So
today, here we are, January 28th, and it turned out being almost
it was warm
60
today.
degrees out here.
Yep.
Don't stop having fun. You know, the next time you come up here, we're going to put you down on the basement. You can help us dig in the dirt down there. How about that?
Nancy, if you could come down, what do you think you'd want to do? We'll see what she says.
Yeah, we'll do. Okay.
Oh.
Dig in the basement. She'd probably do it too.
Yeah. Oh, I think she would.
Yeah. She's kind of a go-getter kind of a person. So all of it. Okay.
Okay.
You know, we've been thinking about down here. We've been thinking about if you're going to drink a pocket beer during the show, you have to crack it open at the beginning of the show.
I did that just for that reason.
Just for Mike.
Yep. I opened it ahead of time. Just
Habitat for Humanity. Is that what you're talking about?
Oh,
yeah.
Habitat. Oh, yeah. Wow.
I've thought about building a little cabin, or, you know, we've got our hands on some little glamping tents. They're not so little, and thought about putting one of those up there. Yes. Yeah. And, I believe you. I really do.
I think we need to build for our grandkids, a cutest little tree house for our grandkids.
Maybe we'll do that.
We'll have all these people come over, and we'll make it a big party.
Yeah. And
we'll build that for our grandkids.
So any other questions out there? We appreciate you coming on tonight.
Yeah, thank you.
Really do. And Casey, if you're still out there, we'll get together during the week here to kind of get figured out what we're doing next week. Gardener and canned and frozen foods. Yep.
All right. Yep.
Yeah. So how'd we do? Did we act like we knew what we were talking about? So Okay, remember next week Casey is going to be on here to talk about, overcoming the hurdles to kind of take the plunge into this backwoods off-grid homesteading lifestyle.
Yes.
It's going to be fun. That's one of my passions is, helping people get the courage to take that first leap.
Yep.
Because it can be a scary one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well.
All right. Sounds like it's about it. So
bye, everybody.
Thanks again.
Thank you.
Don't forget to subscribe, hit the notification bell on the YouTube channel. If you haven't already done that, subscribe to the newsletter down below the description here. And we'll see you next week with Casey.
Thanks for turning in. God bless you. You too, Nancy.
Okay, we're going to get ready to end this thing. There's the end.
Okay.